Next time we bring him, tell him to bring popcorn or something. Dude. This is crazy.
I haven't even talked about George Washington's dream yet. Chuck Norris was born March 10th, 1945. Hitler is dead a few months later. Coincidence?
So, like me, I'm George Washington.
Welcome, everyone, to the fourth episode of Young Patriots. I'm your host, Devin Romero. I'm with our co-host, Aiden MacArthur.
Back again.
We're also here with our guest speaker, and
Hello.
Carson Hurst is his name.
Hello.
So, basically, we're going to introduce him real quick, and he's got some stories for us about the founding and some of the miracles that were undeniable about how our country came to be. So let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead and just introduce yourself real quick to the audience. Where are you from? What is some of the background behind you ending up at school and stuff?
Yeah. I am from Grantsville, Utah. For anybody who knows where that is, it's near Tooele. And for anybody who doesn't know where that is, yes, I live in Salt Lake. I drive a Honda Prius, and I drink Starbucks. No, I'm from a small country town. It's like 45 minutes west of Salt Lake on the way to Wendover. And we've got like 1,500 people in my town. So we're fairly hick, fairly redneck. It's pretty chill. I served my mission in the Nevada-Las Vegas mission for 18 months. And then I came home and I've worked on quite a few temples with my dad's company and earned enough money to come up here for a few semesters without having to work or have a job and stuff like that. So I'm doing that. I'm in the ROTC program up here, and I'm trying to join the National Guard, praying to the MEPS gods that they'll be in my favor. And if all works out well, I'll go to basic training in January. So
Sweet.
that'll be great.
So we'll go ahead and focus on what really drove you to learning more about our founding. What was the attraction for you?
Probably the main thing would be the Book of Mormon, particularly 2nd Nephi chapter 10, where it's talking about the American Revolution in general. My family's always grown up really patriotic. We've had members in the Army. We've had Army personnel in my family forever, since the Revolutionary War. And so just learning about all that kind of stuff and seeing where I can put connections from what I'm learning in school and what I'm learning in church, and just really connecting all of that was just so fascinating for me. And so that was the main driving force, I guess, into my interest in history in general, and as well as just this passion for it that I've discovered.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So he's going to be talking about some of our founding fathers in a moment. But first, we wanted to take a second to just let people know that there's actually going to be a really incredible documentary. And it looks like it's not just like going to be explaining the scenes, but it's actually going to be storytelling. So it'll be exciting. It'll be engaging. You'll really enjoy it. But it's Young Washington is the title. It's a story about George Washington. It's going to release on July 4th of next year, which just so happens to be the 250th anniversary since Independence Day and the Declaration of Independence. So basically the film, it's directed by John Irwin. It's produced by Angel Studios, and it explores the early life of George Washington, focusing on his formative years before the American Revolution. And there's a couple of big hitters in regard to the cast members and whatnot, so you might recognize some of the names on there. So go check it out. It's going to be really awesome, celebratory of the 250th anniversary of our country.
I'm excited for all the hate it's going to get.
Yeah.
But that's just...
Andy Serkis is in it. It better not get any hate.
Yeah.
I will throw a fit. I will throw a fit if it gets any hate.
I bet that movie's racist.
Well, don't you know? Like, that's the thing that happens these days is, like, if you disagree with someone, you just call them a racist. It's just
It works. It's a great way to go about things.
Yeah.
Not true.
Which, it's sad because it devalues what the word actually means, and then when you actually come across a racist, it's like, does anyone trust it?
Exactly.
No.
Like, when people call me a racist, I'm like, no, I'm an internet racist. There's a difference between real racists and internet racists. There's a difference between Instagram reels and actually hating black people.
So, what are some of the stories that you've discovered?
So the one that will probably be most prominent in the George Washington film will be the story of the bulletproof soldier. I know you've heard this. Aiden has not heard this, so this is going to be brand new for him. So George Washington. So to set the world scene, the British Empire is kind of monopolizing everything with the East India Trade Company. They're just kind of ruling the ocean. They're kind of just being big powerhouses. So the biggest empire before the British Empire was the Mongolian Empire. They conquered most of China and they almost reached Europe. They had all of Russia and pretty much most of the Middle East as well, bits of Africa. The Mongolian Empire was gigantic. The British Empire dwarfs that. The British Empire was huge. Like, we always think about the British Empire just ruling a few islands and, yeah, like the colonies and a little bit of Canada and stuff like that. And but, like, Australia is huge. So, like, they have all of this stuff. They had all of India as well. They had, as a result of the Opium Wars, they had Hong Kong. And so the British Empire is just huge at this point. And now, at this point, when George Washington is in the British Army, he was in the British Army, by the way. Fun fact, as a young man.
George Washington, British Army.
I actually didn't know that until I saw the trailer for the Washington.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie.
He was.
I'm like, wait, George Washington in a red coat?
Yeah, he was
that
a
makes
lobster
me think,
back.
Do you think the founding fathers, did they have British accents?
Probably.
No.
That sucks.
No, they had lived in America for a while. They probably had bits of an English accent, but it's still very Americanized. The Mayflower came over in like 1600s. So they've been living away from British rule for a long time, and we get hicks even then. George Washington was a ginger farm boy hick.
He's a ginger.
He was a ginger, yeah.
Really?
Yes, he
That's
was.
so cool, bro.
Yes, he
That's
was.
actually
He was
kinda
6
sick,
foot.
dude,
He was
Loki.
6'3".
Aiden
Weighed
takes
like
off his hat.
he was 6'3". He weighed like 230 pounds. He was a big dude. Like imagine Trump thinner and ginger.
So, like
And-
me, I'm George Washington.
You're not 6'3". George Washington and Donald Trump are taller than I am, and I'm 6'2".
On my dating profiles, I'm 6'4".
Oh my gosh. That's why you don't have a girlfriend at the moment.
You got it, dude. Anyway,
Just for context, they're both in the same band. So again,
Rushmore.
plugs for
Check it out.
Rushmore. Check them out.
at Rushmore_band4.
Precisely. So, anyways, so at the time George Washington was in the British regular army, the British Empire was engaged in war with France called the 7 Years' War. Yes. So the 7 Years' War was it cost a lot of money. So I'm just going to give a whole context for the American Revolution right off of the top of my head. This is going to be so much fun. So while George is in the army, the 7 Years' War is going on between Britain and France. It's also happening in a few of other Britain's colonies, and Britain really establishes dominance here. They really, like King George, really slaps submission into people. And during the 7 Years' War, there's another war going on against the American colonists and the French colonists and the American Indians. We call that war the French and Indian War. Some people say the French and Indian War and 7 Year War are interchangeable. No, they don't know what they're talking about. So they happen during the same time period, and yes, they are fighting the French, but they should be viewed as separate conflicts. So, because the 7 Years' War is more global, French and Indian War was exclusively in the American colonies. So Britain is trying to kick out the French, and French employ American Indians to fight the American colonists, the British Army. So George Washington was a major at the point that this story happens, and which is pretty good. He was basically General Braddock's. I can't say that word. He was basically General Braddock's like puppy. Like, he would do whatever General Braddock wanted and stuff like that. He was basically glorified bodyguard, but he would carry out all of the orders to the lower stuff. Just how military hierarchy works. So while George and General Braddock are trying to move, they're trying to push. Oh man, what fort were they trying to push the French back to? There was a fort they're patrolling to get to, and warfare back then is extremely different from it is now.
They all stood in a line and they just
took
aim.
turns firing at each other.
That's crazy. That's so dumb.
Stupid.
Well,
the French
you know why
and Indian
they did it, right?
Well, because the muskets, you got to load one at a time.
They're too inaccurate. Your best chance of actually hitting anyone is just having a whole row of people fire. And then you're right, because they had to load one at a time. What you'd see is the front line would kneel, the rear guard would roll forward, basically.
Like in Pirates of the Caribbean.
They would fire. And so your new rear guard is loading their muskets as the new front guard is attacking.
Why didn't they just use like an AR or something?
Do you know when the AR-15/M16 was invented?
When?
Like 1950s, 60s.
It's crazy that gun is that old.
Oh,
It's my
yeah,
new favorite
and that we
year.
still use it.
Yeah.
We still use it. The Marines will still use M16s every once in a while. The Army uses the direct predecessor, the M4. I love the
Also, that gun was made, the AR-15. AR is not assault rifle. This is really important to clear up.
Armalite.
One of the most uneducated things to believe. It's not an assault rifle. Every time someone tells you an assault rifle, that term means absolutely nothing. All guns are designed to assault. Okay? So, an assault rifle doesn't exist. The AR is actually the acronym for the manufacturer of the rifle. The AR-15 was originally designed as a hunting rifle. It was such a great rifle that the military adopted it, and that's how they got their, was it their M16?
The M16, yes.
Yeah. So the M16, the only difference between the two for the most part, aside from just being military grade, is that it's also a fully automatic rifle. So
Yes, the M16 had 3-fire burst, three round burst, and had a 20 to 22 inch barrel. The AR-15 usually about a 16 inch. That's what most people have. That's what I have. And then the M4 is usually a lot shorter, and it's just full auto.
gotcha.
It's
So there's the M4 and the M16.
I want all
M4
three
and
of them.
M16 are like just barely different. Like the
interesting.
M16 has like what you would look, if you looked at it, you would be like, oh, that's a hunting rifle stock kind of a thing. You still have the pistol grip, but the M4 has a telescoping stock,
Right.
and they're usually shorter.
Interesting.
Like a 11.5-inch barrel or something like that.
So back.
Anyways, yeah, warfare is different back then.
So yes, they basically lined them up and basically used muskets in a line as a big shotgun. But the main reason they used lines, besides like practical effect, was it's a huge honor system. And like if you engaged in like guerrilla warfare, like the American Indians did, you were trash.
Hiding
you
and
were
sniping.
barbaric. You were barbaric.
Really?
Yes. And like that continued like even with the Civil War. Like if you didn't fight in lines and formations, you
were a
were
coward.
barbaric.
Yeah.
Like it's
Call me a coward and a barbaric then, because
exactly.
that's how I play Fortnite, bro. I be hiding in bushes.
Yeah, that's
that's
the
how
only-
we do it now.
that's
That's
not
how
even
we do
real.
stuff now.
We took inspiration from the Indians, and the British literally said, "That's not fair." How
And we said,
unonerous.
The British would say that. Back then. British are cool now. We're allies.
I know 3 Brits, and they're some of my favorite people. But
Just because, yeah. Go ahead.
no, you can go.
No, I was gonna let you have the stage.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just mainly an honor thing. That was
Interesting.
That was that. So the French and Indian War, the French obviously partnering with the American Indians, as Washington and Braddock are traveling, they get ambushed.
By Native Americans
And French.
and the French.
And the French. Because they're working.
So that's why it's
Okay.
called the
So-
French and Indian War.
That's where
Oh.
that
That
yeah.
makes oh,
So that's pretty much where the start of guerrilla warfare in the United States began. Obviously, the British Army didn't use it, but the French and the Indians did. And General Braddock dies, and George Washington had 3 horses shot out from underneath him,
wow.
and had like I think it was like 12 musket ball holes through his coat. Like he got
And 3 through his hat, I believe,
yes,
as well.
yeah, a few through his
Not
hat.
a single one hit him.
Not a single one hit him. I know, right?
That's not even the good part.
That's not the good part.
That's not the good part.
Really, because
No, go for it.
okay.
No, you're
No,
gonna tell it.
you can go for it. I don't care. I don't.
Who's gonna tell it
Spot
better?
on.
Because this is the first time for me.
He's gonna tell it better. I
So
can tell it. but
okay,
you tell it.
so
Go for it.
there was a Indian who met George Washington a few years later, after the Revolutionary War had ended, and he was at that battle where they ambushed Braddock. And this Indian comes up to George Washington, and he's like, I was there when Braddock was killed. And George is like, oh, okay. And he's like, I don't know how to miss. And whenever I shot at you, nothing would happen. Like my bullets would just go wide. And he's just like, I couldn't figure it out. God protected you. He vehemently believed that the Great Spirit protected George Washington.
It's almost like that's happened before in Scripture.
I know, right? Where do we...
And even
Samuel.
recently.
And even
Yes,
recently.
Recently with President Trump.
It's like, oh. Nope, I'm still an atheist.
Anyways, so Washington developed the nickname the Bulletproof Soldier.
Nice.
And then the French and Indian War ends. We gain more territory from the French. We pretty much banish them to Louisiana, and
Hence all the French culture there.
Mm-hmm. So
Fleur-de-lis.
New Orleans is crazy French. Like Quebec, we push them back there. That's crazy French, obviously because they speak it there. But it's very, very interesting. The Bulletproof Soldier is super, super cool.
That's sick.
Super, super cool. Ron Chernow, who wrote an incredible biography of George Washington, I recommend reading it, barely mentions that. Like, he tells the story, but he only spends like a page talking about it. And he doesn't talk a whole lot about the hand of God. He just more focuses on Washington as a person. But there's an awesome book called The Washington Hypothesis by a member of the church. And he goes through all of these miracles in like extreme detail. And it's
That's
super,
awesome.
super cool.
Yeah, that's not something I understand to be the case, is that they stopped talking about this story in school for that exact reason, because it mentions God. It's a controversial story. So they don't want to...
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that for a second. The separation of church and state. I've been meaning to talk about this for a long time.
Yes.
This is a misunderstood concept. So the reason we get the concept of separation of church and state, it was a letter from Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, and he was speaking to a religious people, and I can't remember the context of why the letter was being written, but he was just basically indicating to them the concept of separation of church and state. That concept did not mean that you cannot talk about God in state-sponsored productions. It does not mean you can't talk about God in the court, in Congress, almost in Parliament. It does not mean you can't say it in school. Does not mean you can't say prayers in school. All of these things are now being listed as, under separation of church and state, we can't talk about these things. And there's so much limitations on it. That was never meant to be the case. What that phrase always meant was no state-sponsored church. So separation of church and state, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. It's in a simple letter that Jefferson wrote with context. That context is the government should not prioritize one religion over another. Simple as that. So you're not going to have the Baptists sponsored by the county or the city or the federal government. And that creates an equity and an equality across the board for all religions to compete and for people to just believe what they believe. What they came from was a society where there was a state religion. It was the Church of England.
Yeah.
I mean, the origin of that church is literally, I think it was King George, literally
King
just
Henry VIII
just wanted to
divorce.
have a divorce because his wife wouldn't give him, as he saw, a baby boy to be his heir.
So he asked the Pope, he's like, can I divorce? And the Pope is like, there's no divorce in the Holy Roman Catholic Church. And so he's like, I'm going to do my own thing then.
The doctrine is almost identical. Like if you look at the doctrine, at least when it was originally formed, almost identical to the Roman Catholicism of the time. The only difference was he can do whatever he wants to.
Interesting.
So like that's the type of environment that they came from. That lack of control in their own belief system. You couldn't believe anything else. And so that lack of control in their own personal convictions and religious pursuit was what they were fighting for in this country. It was one of the main reasons. It's part of the reason that slavery was an issue, because the king decided all of the things that they could and cannot do. And they wanted freedom from that. I'm telling you right now, our founding was absolutely religiously motivated. But despite that, none of the founders were going to tell you have to belong to such and such church.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason why the Mayflower came over, because they were all Puritans.
I believe so.
They were all Puritans.
Yeah.
because Protestant Reformation is happening, Martin Luther and all that kind of stuff. Mayflower sails over, 1610? Somewhere around there. So they come over here, establish like Plymouth and Jamestown and all those kinds of things. Just people are moving over here for religious freedoms because there wasn't religious freedom until there wasn't religious freedom up even when the church was formed. I mean, we see the church having to leave the United States and go to the Utah territory.
Which no one talks about, which I find hilarious.
Yeah.
Instead, they just shoot up our buildings and call us names at football games and then say that we're not Christian. And,
Well, we're trying to change that.
yeah. That's a dope story, though.
Separation of church and state. That was another thing. But yes, it's a very, very cool story.
I've never heard that. So that's crazy to me that they don't share that story anymore because...
Yes.
But that doesn't violate, like you're talking about, it doesn't violate the letter of separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get people to understand the context of the separation of church and state then?
It's just
gotta
the
talk
forums
about
like we're having right now, just letting people know about it. But part of it's a culture shift because even when you tell someone, I know from experience, people are still uncomfortable. I mean, I talk about politics in church and people will be like, that's not the time and place. What? Have you read the scriptures?
Mm-hmm.
How involved, especially the Book of Mormon, but the scriptures are very heavily focused on politics at the time because the politics of the time have such a great influence on the morality of the people of the time.
Absolutely.
So if you have a righteous king, if you have a righteous governor, a righteous government, then you're going to see a more likely a righteous people, partly because righteous people will be voting for better people.
Yes.
But also it's a sign as society as a whole is probably a little closer to God than in other times.
Yeah.
Which is part of the issue we're seeing right now. The corruption we're seeing in our government is a direct result of people diverging away from religious truths. When you try to say that you can have peace and civility in society without God in it, when a society like ours has been built for a moral and religious people, that's Thomas Jefferson that said it, right?
Absolutely.
You want to give that quote?
That's the gist of the quote. The Constitution mentions the Bible like 4 times, like quotes from the Bible like 4 times, which is incredible. Like no other like state constitution besides Holy Roman Empire or something mentioned like the Bible and was based upon religious and Western civilization principles. Our laws are based off of Judeo-Christian values, like murder is wrong. You go to the Middle East, is murder wrong?
Nope.
No.
Or at least within context.
Within context. Like if you're gay, like we believe murder is wrong
Universally.
regardless.
Yeah.
Islam is very not that way. They're like, no, it's totally cool to kill the Western Zionists. It's totally cool to behead Americans and tourists and journalists, and it's totally okay to throw gay people off of buildings. It's ridiculous. So just I don't like how morality is being altered by people who believe, I'm just going to say false religion, but they could say the same thing to me, but it's just sad seeing morality not being as universal as it once was. It's ridiculous to me, but
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that Thomas Jefferson said was that this Constitution, this framework, is wholly inadequate for it is designed for a religious people, and it is wholly inadequate for any other.
yes.
So if you're not following Judeo-Christian values, the Constitution starts losing attraction, starts losing appeal, and it starts losing force. Which, I mean, is that not what we've seen in today's society? And so that's something that I was really saddened by. So I went to the No Kings rally here in town. It wasn't a very big turnout. Majority of those No Kings,
40 people max.
yeah. So majority of those No Kings protests, which by the way was funded by George Soros. I think it was Bill Gates also funded it.
Bill
the
Gates,
Tides
yes.
Foundation and
Bill Gates.
the Ford Foundation.
Hold on. What did Bill
And-
Gates? What's his company again? Is that Microsoft?
Microsoft.
Okay. I've always hated Microsoft. I hate using their platforms. Excel and Word. It's so ridiculous.
But basically, they funded that for a tune of about $300 million, I think it was. Yeah, $300 million
Yeah.
across the U.S.
across the U.S. And
Probably not this one, but I don't know how they got started. I just saw it on the school Instagram page. That was the only way
It's it's probably going to organizers and things like that, and probably advertisement campaigns. But so a lot of the people there are probably volunteers and people just showing up. But I went to the No Kings rally here, and I was talking with this guy, and he was very insistent. He was very rude, which was unfortunate, but you know, it's, we kind of expect that when we're having these dialogues. I was trying to be as respectful as I could, and I'm not returning his insults.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how he was hoping that America would fall. And I kept trying to ask him, like, well, what do you think is going to replace it? What are you hoping will replace it? And he said, honestly, socialism. And I tried talking to him and being like, do you understand what socialism has ever brought to the world besides suffering?
Can I guess what he said? Did he say, oh, that just hasn't been executed right yet?
They said that wasn't real socialism.
It wasn't real socialism.
Basically the same thing.
This irks me. Because in my history classes, we're learning about the guy who started like economic socialism. His name was Robert Owen. And Robert Owen basically do you know what the Googleplex is?
I know it's a really big number.
I've heard of it.
And I know Google is named after the Googleplex.
The Googleplex is a place.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes, it is a big complex where all the big employees of Google live. They have housing there. They have restaurants there. They have it's economic socialism.
Yeah.
And so basically, Google, like I love the idea of the Googleplex. It's really cool. But the only way it works is if the people who are in charge of it don't get greedy, don't get overpaid and stuff like that. And if they have enough money to continue, everybody wants to work at Google. Like I knew a guy in Las Vegas who catered for Google, and he's just in awe of the Googleplex. Like if everybody's living by the same rules and everything like that, it's a complete utopian society. Like it's great. It's a lot like how we imagine the millennium will be. But obviously there's dumb people.
Right.
Everywhere.
The biggest obstacle to a communal societal living is the natural man, which is what we would refer to when we're saying the imperfections, the greed, the sin of mankind and our fallen tendency in nature. It's the main impediment, because the moment any person decides, no, I don't want to have to work, you'll get people that because they're going to get stuff anyway, they won't try hard. Exactly. Which in Google, they could still fire them.
Yes.
That you can't do that in a socialist society.
Exactly.
So that's the other thing that I want to point out, is that this is an island inside of a capitalist ocean.
Exactly. So Robert Owen came up with this idea where he would only hire the best, most qualified people. He would give them...
That's not very socialist.
He would give them free housing. He would give them like a lot of free food and stuff like that. And he would... because he basically figured out, if I give a bunch of people like a ton of incentives to work for me, basically socialist principles, Marxist principles to work for me, production is going to go through the roof. And he was right for about 6-7 years. And then the money runs out, and then it crashes. Obviously, the Googleplex, it hasn't happened with that, because Google is always going to be rich because everybody uses Google for everything.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see when or how Google will fall, or the Googleplex will fall, or if they kind of change that. But it's very, very interesting. So Robert Owen tried doing that in England, failed. Did it again in America, in like Chicago, failed, and then he was completely bankrupt.
Like for Jamestown, it literally ended in cannibalism. It's been tried multiple times. The French, so a lot of Marxist thoughts are actually recycled product from England and from French visionaries, I'll say. They were trying to create a better society. Yeah. Most of the concepts, though, were never put together in the way Karl Marx put them. So they weren't necessarily saying, let's become socialist or become communist, but a lot of them were creating the structure and saying maybe this would work, or sometimes they were really certain it would work, or other times they were like, I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, so then Karl Marx kind of just packaged everything together and made it communism. So, but a lot of these people would go over into America, and I know in the South there were French colonies that they tried doing this exact same thing. It literally always ended in starvation, cannibalism, and death. Like it didn't work. And whether you attribute that to a small scale test phase or just people weren't ready for it, they weren't prepared enough. Whatever it is, it didn't work. It literally, we have example after example after example of this system does not work.
That's just because people get greedy. Whoever ends up on the top of that, they just keep taking and keep taking.
Well, you have greedy people on the top that are siphoning, but then you also have, it's called the freeloader problem. And we have this in capitalism too, in certain instances. It's like if the garbage truck company, Waste Management, comes across your street and let's say you refuse to pay your bill for trash collection, you're still getting your trash taken out. That's part of the freeloader problem. And there's things they try to do to prevent you. It was a problem during radio broadcast because if you wanted to charge someone to listen to your radio station, you kind of couldn't because it's just free airwaves that are blasting out everywhere. That's why it was so big on advertising. But, so stuff like that, those are free. That's what we call the freeloader principle in economics. That is very problematic for socialist societies. You're going to have someone that's like, I don't have to work as hard and I'll get the same reward.
Yeah. It's just a very stark contrast to the law of consecration, but that's actually like built on moral principles of like, hey, we all have to work kind of a thing. Like the early church law of consecration where you dedicate all of your land and all of your resources and the prophet will divide it up and the bishops will divide it up among people who need it. Like that's the goal, but obviously it failed because we have people like Lyman Johnson and Thomas B. Marsh and all of these people who get prideful and eventually fall away from the church and stuff because the law of consecration was too high of a standard for them to live.
But also we have to point out that when socialism and communism has been applied in most circumstances, when it does last for any long period of time, it's because the state enforces it, which is antithetical I should say, to how the law of consecration was performed, because it also was a commandment from God and it was still up to people to decide.
Yes.
So no one was forced. I mean, there were consequences because people didn't end up doing it. They were driven out of Missouri by the people that lived there. But, they had a choice. They were not forced. No one was putting a gun to their head saying, you better do this, which sadly is where we've seen a lot of the millions dead in Maoist China, in, Stalin, USSR, and other dictators in those countries, and many other countries that have enacted these things. It's been a very heavy death toll.
Yes.
So what sets us apart with our founding compared to France and these other nations? What makes us so culturally different historically?
What makes us culturally, well, obviously our isolationist, and I would credit the Protestant Reformation and the movement of Protestants to the United States, that therefore were based on a product of religious freedom and stuff like that. But another one of the main things was just, like I was mentioning, the 7 Years' War and the East India Trading Company and stuff like that. And because of the 7 Years' War, Britain's in a lot of debt, so they tax us a whole lot. That's another huge thing, was the taxes. But I would say what sets us apart was the religious freedom specifically, and what we're focusing on today, and the more historical, environmental, like taxing and all of the cultural stuff. But
do you have any input on the story of the Boston Tea Party?
Boston Tea Party, it was just a revolt of tax on tea. That's mainly the gist. We blame the Indians for it, which was not great on our part. But it was that was the main thing where we were like, okay, we can take physical action against this, because we had tried offering the olive branch petition as kind of like a final straw. We're like trying to do all this, like trying to. We tried really hard to avoid war with Great Britain because we knew how much it would suck for us.
They were the most powerful army at the time.
Most powerful army, biggest empire to ever exist, and it's
the
best trained.
Main naval country too.
Yes.
Would Spain be the only other one, really? Spain and Portugal?
Portugal is very, very small, not very powerful. They had a lot of merchant power, particularly in India, but the Dutch and the Brits had the best naval power. Spain,
Dutch, really?
The Dutch and the Brits the Dutch had their own India Trading Company, So
They kind of collaborated.
the Dutch and the British, they fought a lot.
Oh.
They fought a lot because Britain wanted dominance of the Indian Sea and the Dutch wanted the dominance of the Indian Sea because they want what's in India? Textiles. Like
That's
you have
like cotton.
like textiles, and so basically like clothing, like stuff to make clothing and stuff like that, tapestries and stuff like that. So, but mainly cotton. They loved their cotton. So the Dutch really wanted in on that as well. So the Brits and the Dutch fought a lot on that. And plus then you have easy access to China. So, and China at this point is kind of shut down. They're kind of stopping. They don't engage in the Industrial Revolution. They don't engage in exploration. That's why Mexico isn't owned by China. We're letting a lot of land owned by China in the United States, which is another topic. But but Britain is just this giant world superpower that the world had never seen before. And so we're just kind of like, can you please let us alone? And King George was like, no
taxation without representation.
Yes.
So I was fascinated because recently I listened to Glenn Beck's show.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely inspired man. So he was talking recently, and I never knew this until then, just a couple days ago. He said one of the amazing things that sets apart the Boston Tea Party from, and they never talk about this, from all this like Antifa stuff, all the communist revolt, revolution, like they want blood in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
That's how communism has to spring out, they say. You have to have that violent revolt, and that is what has to be the Kickstarter. Otherwise, it doesn't count. It won't be successful without you have to tear everything down, and then you can build up. That's their belief.
Like Kamala's line that she quotes all the time. We have to
be unburdened by what
has been.
By what has been.
Yes, that's straight from the Communist
It
Manifesto.
sounds like it's just a word salad, but she is actually touting communist doctrine when she says that.
Hold on, say it again.
We must be unburdened by what has been.
By what has been. What has been.
The government.
We have to be unburdened.
Just our culture, our beliefs, our structure.
We gotta scrap our culture.
Yeah.
Scrap.
Yeah.
We would be in a very different America right now if she won the election.
Oh my goodness.
So,
and then so she's saying that's off of some communist quoting.
That's from the Communist Manifesto.
Word for word.
Not word. It was written in German.
Oh, okay.
But
9 has been 9. I don't know.
Aiden is very fluent in many languages. So he was explaining that unlike Antifa and the different Communist Party movements, when the Boston Tea Party individuals boarded the ship, it was just fresh to the harbor, and they talked to the captain. They said, "Hey, we're gonna need to take your tea and throw it overboard." So they were basically explaining their plan to this captain. I mean, what's the captain gonna do? There's all these guys that are on a ship, and he's worried they're probably gonna kill him.
Yeah, they're armed with tomahawks and spears and stuff.
And so basically, they're having this conversation with him. He's like, "Well, at least let me get the tea off the boat, because that's how I'm gonna get paid." And they're like, "Nope, we can't do that. We are tired of what England has done to betray us. Like they have zero regard for us." And so they were talking, and the captain's like, "Well, maybe I can get paid through the insurance. So they won't fund it if you guys are the ones that did it. But if I get I think it is, if I get attacked, it wasn't just like a protest. If I get attacked and I couldn't defend myself, it was under like piracy. If pirates attack, then I can get compensation from the insurance company to pay me back for all the tea you threw overboard." Nice. So what did they do? They, were untruthful about what the incidents were. They threw the tea overboard and didn't hurt anyone. And he goes back to Britain, and who really lost out was the insurance company. Yeah. They had to reimburse him for all of that property. But it was just fascinating to kind of see the difference. It wasn't just this like angry revolt. It was a methodically planned out, strategically targeted. We're only targeting the tea. This is a deadly serious message to the king. we will not have any of this.
Mm-hmm.
No taxation without representation.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of those ideas made it into the Declaration of Independence with the list of grievances. Did you know there was an abolitionist clause originally in the Declaration of
I'm
Independence?
so glad you bring this up.
Yes.
Go
It
into
was
this.
so
I've
good.
heard of
I will
that.
read it.
Yeah.
168 words.
This is the
screenshotted
history
it.
they don't tell you in school. It's
So-
so tragic.
Thomas Jefferson.
Remember, slave owner, so he's racist. We have to have that context.
Racist.
Now we'll hear this.
So at this point, some context. In 1775, Lord Dunmore, who's a British guy, he offered freedom to any slave who defected to the British and fought in their army.
Really?
Yes. So this abolitionist clause is broken up into two separate things. One is condemning slavery, and the next is condemning King George for letting Dunmore do this. So, at this point, slavery was a little bit on the decline.
Really?
The founders didn't see it lasting more than 50 years after the war.
Yeah.
After the country had been founded,
Which they put in the Constitution.
Yes, so they think they're like, okay, this is on the decline. We're not going to need this much longer. Little did they know.
Yeah.
Like even Thomas Jefferson, he was the president who stopped the selling of. He's prevented the East India Trade Company from bringing more slaves to America in 1807.
Oh, really?
So in 1807, when he's president, no more slaves are coming into America. It's just the slave trade inside America, and they are allowed to populate, and more slaves become, and that's where the Civil War really started to develop. So this is the first part of the abolitionist clause. So this is talking about grievances of King George against the American people. So he says, he has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. So basically, East India Trade Company bringing slaves over. Fun fact, one of the first like legal slave owner in America, he was black, his name was Anthony Johnson. He was like at this point, slaves were captured in Africa by other Africans, sold to Portugal, brought to the United States as indentured servants, which is you work for a certain amount of time, work off your debt, and then you're a free guy.
Typically 7 years.
Anthony Johnson, who was a black man, who was a slave himself, who earned his freedom through indentured servitude, then turned around, owned slaves, and then when one of his indentured servants, who was a black man, was being like, okay, my sentence is up, like I can go and be a free man, Anthony Johnson's like, no, I own you for life, took it to court, and the court ruled in Anthony Johnson's favor.
Wow.
Anyways,
Wait,
they
Anthony
don't
Johnson
teach
was
you
black?
that. He was the first court-cased, legal, slain over
And he was
slave
black.
owner in America, and he was a black.
That's
black.
insane.
Yes.
I didn't know about that.
I didn't
They
know
don't
that
teach
could
you
happen.
that. So, anyways,
That's interesting. Crazy how I'm
Yeah.
just now learning about that.
It used to be 7 years you would work, and then
it would be 7 years. It was in most points of indentured servitude. If you were like white, it was like 18, but a long time. So that's the first part of that clause where he's talking about, he's like, we don't like slaves coming in to America. So this is the second part, which is referencing Lord Dunmore, where he says, he is now exciting those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them by murdering the people of whom he has obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. The Declaration of Independence happened, Second Continental Congress, 1776, when they meet to vote on what goes into the Declaration. It has to be unanimous on what goes in. 2 states' representatives voted against that clause. Take a random guess.
I already know the answer, but
I think you've told me, but if I had to guess, of the 13 colonies, New York. Oh, I'm thinking modern day. I don't know. Tell me.
Georgia and South Carolina.
Oh, because they wanted slaves.
Where did the Civil War start? Fort Sumter, South Carolina.
yeah.
So those are the 2 states that voted against the abolitionist clause, and it was taken out.
Well, not only that, there's a version that it must have preceded that one, where Thomas Jefferson, because he was the penman of the Declaration of Independence
with John Jay and Ben Franklin, but he did the majority of it.
Right, and so, but one of the things he says, he calls out King George?
King George III, yes.
He calls out King George III, and he says a supposedly Christian king that he bolds and underlines is engaging in the sale and trade of man. And he emphasizes man. Remember, a lot of people didn't think they were,
people.
The same as white people. Like, they thought they were incapable of functioning at the same time. Like, this was an actual thing they were discussing at that time, was whether the black man was capable of self-governance.
Well, they're people now, so.
Well, they've always been people. But
so
yeah.
That's an army joke.
So that's the tough thing about that, is that's the difference between, they had a completely different worldview back then, and they still understood that slavery was wrong. We don't hold that worldview anymore, and a good thing. We are all equal. We're all capable of self-governance. But we have to understand what went into our founding. We can't just talk about it and touch on the points we like, whether it's the pro or the con. We have to understand that this is our history, and we need to accept the victories, and we need to admit the defeats and say we need to change that, or we've already changed
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the glorious thing. I love that we live in a country where, Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream, honestly, we've achieved it.
What about George Washington's dream?
What was his dream?
I talked about it a little bit.
Oh, that's right. That's one of his other stories.
Yes. So, how much time do we have?
We're gonna go and make this an extended episode.
Okay, cool. Because this is gonna take a second.
I hope it's interesting for everybody.
Real quick too, just to give some context, one of the things he mentioned was like the slaves dying on their transit from Africa to Portugal to Britain to America. Just so you know, those slave ships were so grotesque that they were walking around in their own feces. So it's not good.
Oh my gosh! People, they put nets. Okay. They put nets around the ship, so in case slaves jumped overboard, the nets would catch them.
That's insane. They were slaves before they were slaves.
That's how bad the conditions on the ship were. They would rather jump overboard because black people can't swim. So I kid. That's a joke. They couldn't swim because they live in Africa. They never really learned how to swim, and people would drown in just a few minutes if they jumped overboard. And they didn't want to go and drag a dead body back in, so they just put nets around just to prevent them from escaping.
What a horrible!
That's insane.
Thing. Yeah. So, and the other thing is, they said they could smell them miles away. Like a slave ship pulls into your harbor, and you know it. Because of the stench, because of the feces
and the dead people
and dead people. So it was a horrible, horrible environment, absolutely grotesque.
Oh yeah,
and the Mayflower, the people that were in the Mayflower when they
experienced similar conditions.
Right, they experienced that, but then also when they landed, there was a slave ship that had passed by them, was trying to dock, and they also smelled it, and they knew it was a slave ship. It docked, and they said, "You can't keep these slaves." So a similar thing to the Tea Party, they basically let the slaves go, and they were like, you pulled them to the wrong harbor. We're letting these people go. Again, Christianity has been a huge motivator and guide for eliminating slavery. And sadly, we haven't eliminated slavery from the world.
Sorry, continue.
Just between human trafficking and then also, other countries.
Do you know who had the longest unbroken chain of history in the entire world? What country?
Of slavery? You'll never guess.
I won't ever guess. Who had slavery for the longest unbroken time?
1,500 years.
1,500 years.
Take a random guess.
Rome. That's a good guess, though.
Rome wasn't around for 1,500 years.
You should have guessed Egypt. It's not Egypt.
Egypt. Oh, okay.
Korea.
Who did they enslave?
Probably.
Other Koreans.
Koreans. I was going to say, because I'm actually not going to say that.
Other Koreans, probably a few Chinese, depends on how powerful
So
they were.
this is the other thing I want to just touch on before we get into the story you're going to start on, is slavery has existed. I'm absolutely opposed to it. In case anyone wanted to debate that in the comments, I'm absolutely opposed to slavery. It was an ugly, horrible, unchristian, ungodly practice, and it's unethical. So, but basically, slavery was not always a race-based process.
Oh
And in fact, it might even be the case that it was rarely race-based. There were such things as, people enslaving the Irish because they were Irish. But like you said, the blacks that got enslaved were enslaved by blacks that had conquered them in battle. Same thing for Egyptians. You go through most of civilization, and you see the slaves came from war. So you would basically capture these people as prisoners of war, and then you would use them to build up your people and your infrastructure. That's how slavery worked. It had nothing to do with race. So a lot of times, slaves are the nearest neighbors of the people that were enslaving them. That's just what we see.
Right.
Usually. So this is the exception. The East India Trade Company was the exception.
Yeah.
Before we move on real quick, I was going to say something. You mentioned something about how Christianity has kind of been at the root of all this.
Absolutely.
Making things better, obviously.
Because man was made in the image of God. That's the core doctrine.
Yeah. So I'd like to, this is going to make it for a good reel. I'd like to challenge anyone listening, find something wrong with Christianity. Don't say, oh, they don't let gay people get married. That's
the Crusades.
Crusades, man.
Find something within Christ's teachings. Find something within Christ's teachings that is going to put a hindrance on our progression as humankind. I can't think of a single thing. Go and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John and tell me something that's wrong with that.
Well, they'll tell you that the Bible encourages slavery. And it's like, no.
Where?
Do you know the story of David and Daniel and
Yeah.
like all that kind of stuff? No, they're vehemently.
Well, just because they had laws about how to be a good slave owner does not mean that it's condoning slavery. The thing was, it's like, listen, there are people that are enslaving people. If you're going to do that, at least it's literally the difference between an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The law did not say that if you take out someone's eye, you can take out theirs, or if they took out your eye, you could take out theirs. It was saying that you basically could administer punishment up to and equal to what they did, but did not require you to do that. So that's something that people don't realize. And it's the same thing with this. It didn't say, have slaves. It's like, treat them nice for goodness sake. That's literally the concept, and people don't talk about that enough.
Yeah, and they'll take that. They'll put a spin on my little invitation here and say, oh, well, this and that and the other. I'm just telling you, look. Read the words of Jesus Christ and find me something that's wrong with that. Read his Beatitudes. And tell me how that's going to make America a terrible place.
So obviously the law of Moses was revolutionary in how to treat other people, because if Jesus was revolutionary to them, the law of Moses was revolutionary to everybody else in the Fertile Crescent when that happened, because beforehand they had precedents of the law of Urmamu and the law code of Hammurabi, which is basically, killed someone's slave, just pay them this amount of money and you're good in the eyes of the law, which is wild. You slept with this person's wife, pay this amount of money and you're good. So the law of Moses was revolutionary, and then Christ was even more of a revolutionist above that.
Right. So,
insane.
And the interesting thing about that too is the reason I mentioned the Crusades is that's a perfect example of people that call themselves Christian, that their behaviors belie them. They are not Christian. If you are going out and killing and hurting other people in the name of your God,
Islam,
not the Christian God,
not Christian. And
God doesn't direct that.
And I've been told that there are some interesting contexts that you need to understand about the Crusades. They were at war with Islam, by the way. That was the reason that all of that happened. It was the Crusades was Christians and Islam, Persians, I believe they were called back then, right?
Yeah. And it was Islam. So the Crusades started not very long after Muhammad was born. He was born in 507 and started Islam, and then they started taking over everything. They almost reached Europe, so Europe was being attacked from Africa by the Muslims, from north by the Vikings, and then by the Turks on the east. So they're just kind of going crazy by the Hungarians, the Huns. From the east. Wow. So they're just being attacked on all three sides, and Europe does the Holy Roman Empire does a great job of trying to stop that. The Byzantine Empire falls to Islam, and so there's just all sorts of crazy stuff happening in the Middle Ages in Europe. But
There's context to all these things. Let's
Yes.
try to. That's the whole purpose of this podcast. Is let's understand the context. Let's come together, see where we disagree. That's fine. We're not going to try to convince anyone to believe, other than what they believe. But we want to talk about these difficult conversations, and we want to be real.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and resume.
Okay. Have any of you heard of Lance Richardson?
Maybe, but I don't know anything.
Yeah, I
about
have
him.
just now.
Just now? Okay, cool. Lance Richardson was a guy who went and lived with the Hopi Indians for a while, just researching them and getting their stories. So this is context for George Washington's dream. So the Hopis have a bunch of prophecies that they were finally able to tell the world in the early 1940s, when the UN building or EU or whatever, there was a building built somewhere, a glass building built on Turtle Island, which is New York, which is where a bunch of different countries meet to discuss world stuff, and the Indians went there, the Hopis went there to try to tell them their prophecies. They didn't listen. So prophecies, the Hopi have so many cool stories that match up with George Washington's dream, Nostradamus' quatrains, and the preachings of a witch named Ursula in England. I can't remember her last name to save my life.
Is that the octopus chick from Little Mermaid?
I was just thinking.
That's what she's named after.
Does
they
she look
actually
like that?
Octopus chick.
Did they actually pick that directly?
I don't think so.
Okay. I was gonna say.
That's a pretty insane coinkydink.
you can go to the cave that she supposedly lived in, the real witch Ursula, in England. Like, they send schoolboys there for trips and stuff like that. So it's like cool. She was a real person. Gave some real cool prophecies, but she was eventually burned at the stake for witchcraft.
I was gonna say.
But so what happened? They actually called her Mother Ursula because she was so saint-like, and then she said a few things that came true, and they're like, witch. so
we don't actually know if she was a witch then.
Probably
just
not.
she could have been a
prophetess, maybe.
Right.
But so Hopis, Nostradamus, Ursula, they all kind of correlate over the same thing, and it's super, super cool. So basically, the Hopis give a story very similar to Christ visiting the Americas, where a great white god descended out of heaven, and they call him the Masiwa. What's that kind of similar to?
Masula?
Messiah.
Masiwa.
Oh.
That's very interesting.
Continue.
The Mayans and the Aztecs also have this myth.
I've heard that one, yeah.
Where they call him Cucalan for the Mayans and Quetzalcoatl for the
That's
Aztecs.
the one I've heard. I was just going to look it up.
So Quetzalcoatl, do you know, is made up from two terms. Quetzal, which is a bird, and coatl, which is a snake.
Quetzal represent
So
Bird,
Quetzal's,
snake.
it's
Flying
feathers.
snake.
It's
flying snake.
feathered serpent.
Feathered serpent.
Feathered serpent is more like
in
that.
Hebrew, the serpent is a symbol of Christ.
What?
That's the reason Moses raises
Moses.
the brass
Oh,
Brass serpent, yes.
I'm
So-
thinking like Garden of Eden
Quetzal.
type stuff.
So
right now.
Quetzal was a kind of bird
Beautiful bird.
that its feathers could only be worn by royalty.
Wow.
And to them, it demonstrated the Lord of the heavens. And the snake to them was the Lord of the earth. So if you put them together, it's
interesting.
Lord of heaven and earth. And
What
when the
the
Spanish
heck?
when the Spanish conquistadors, when Cortez was coming through and completely slaughtered the Aztecs, they came, and the common narrative now is, oh, they were worshiping a pagan religion. No, they discovered that they were worshiping a great white god. They had cotton of more colors than white. They had cotton in colors that we don't have today, new colors that we don't have.
The Aztecs?
Yes, the
What?
Aztecs. They had cotton,
Whoa.
and it was incredible. And so when Cortez is coming through here, he's noticing all of this, and like the Incas as well. Like, it's very, very similar. They found advanced civilizations, not near as advanced as them because they didn't even have the wheel. Also, by the way, Greeks had the steam engine. Fun fact. They used it for toys and for like parlor tricks, like opening doors. They had a steam engine. And then they just were like, we can't find a real application for this. Anyways, so they had wheels, but they only used them for like toys and stuff. And so like they find this advanced civilization, and they just completely raise it.
Wipe it out?
Wasn't it partly from like disease?
Disease like smallpox played a huge part in it. Smallpox would reach civilizations and completely destroy them before the Spanish would even get there. Like
That's
months
the
before.
first demonstration of biowarfare.
And it wasn't even on purpose. It
Really?
wasn't even, no,
That's
because
insane.
you bring a disease over. That's why when you go to another country for a mission, you have to get so many immunizations because your immune system isn't used to the diseases over there. So like Ebola in Africa, like you have to get shots and stuff for that because our immune systems aren't used to that, but theirs are. So when the Europeans bring over smallpox, the natives are not prepared for smallpox. So it just completely wipes them out. And it's super, super sad. I think they lost like 90% of the population
It was bad.
due to smallpox. It was really, really bad. So anyways, the Masiwa, when he comes down and visits the Hopis, he gives them these prophecies. So he teaches them what they call the true life plan. Plan of salvation. It's very, very similar. And he writes things on tablets, on these 2 tablets. They still have these tablets.
What the heck?
Where are these tablets?
In Hopi land. They do not let white people see them anymore because white people would come in and just completely trash their sacred artifacts.
Oh.
So
Of course.
they don't let white people see these. But
Man,
they do have them.
bummer.
But they do have them. They don't let white men see hardly any of
White
this
by
stuff.
color or white by where you come from?
Basically outsiders. But for a long time, it was white men.
Me trying to change my entire life to go find these tablets, bro. I can't even read whatever's on there.
No, but they have them, and that it basically outlines what they say are their big 10 commandments kind of a thing. It's very similar. Wow. So the Masiwa says, okay, I have to leave, but I'm going to come back. And to them, they're like, you're coming back? And they're like, this is great. And he's like performing all sorts of miracles and stuff like that.
Strange.
There's stories of him choosing 12 followers
What the heck?
to follow him around. Yeah. Choosing 12 followers.
And they
there's
don't
this-
believe in Christ.
Most of them do, actually.
Do they really?
Most of them believe that this is the story in the Book of Mormon, as Lance Richardson's a member of the church. Wow. And so he's the guy who discovered all of this. And so he's like a lot of them believe that this is the experience from the Book of Mormon. A lot of them don't, but a lot of them do. So I don't think the story of him choosing 12 disciples is particularly from Hopi. It might be from another tribe. But there's stories of him, like this little girl had been clawed by a jaguar. And they bring this little girl to him, and he heals her, kind of a thing. Yeah. And he says, basically in essence, be whole, kind of thing. And there's another story. This is my favorite story about the Masiwa or Quetzalcoatl or Cuclan or whatever, this great white god that came down. That's why they accepted the Europeans, by the way. Why natives accepted the Europeans, because they see white. And they're like, oh, great white god. Cool. This is him.
You must
He's
be
back.
people.
So
Yeah.
There's a story where Jesus, I'm just going to call him Jesus. Jesus and the 12 disciples come across this deer that had been attacked and mauled by probably a jaguar. And Jesus heals the deer and sends it off with its fawn, because its fawn was by it, and it's just like this abandoned baby. And the disciples ask him, they're like, why did you waste your power doing that? Like, it's an animal. And Christ was like, there is no creature that is undeserving of my grace. And I was just like,
that's huge.
That's super cool.
That's part of their mythology.
Mm-hmm. There's Indian stories that have that.
See, and just to help too, like a lot of people are going to have issue with us calling Christ white, because that's what people are saying is like he wasn't white, he was Jewish.
He was Jewish.
You also have to remember, like, in comparison to other peoples, they did look at Jewish people as white. So you have to take that with context. And then the other thing is he's also known
dressed in a white robe.
Right, the white robe, and my understanding is that he was very illuminated.
Yes.
So he's literally giving off light. So it could have to do with that as well.
It matches the description of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason why we say Great White God. So anyways, as he's doing all of these miracles and stuff, when he says, I have to leave, they're like, no, don't leave. Similar to the Book of Mormon. He gives them not only more prophecies about what's going to happen, gathering of Israel, as in the Book of Mormon, he also gives them a list of prophecies of what's going to happen before he comes back. And he says, now this is where it gets crazy. He says,
it's not crazy already? Holy crap.
Trust me.
This is just the intro.
It gets wild. That was I haven't even talked about George Washington's dream yet.
Okay, next time we bring him, tell him to bring popcorn or something. Dude. This is crazy.
This is just the warm up.
So
I bet that's gonna make it on the clickbait intro. The little words we do beforehand.
So they're giving. So the Masiwa tells them there are going to be 3 great shakings before I come again. 3 great shakings.
Ominous.
Remember this. She says the first 2 are inevitable. They are going to happen. The 3rd great shaking is avoidable if you can convince the rest of the world to follow me and follow the True Life plan.
Nuclear bombs.
We're trying to help. We're working on it.
So
nuclear warfare.
So the first great shaking, he gave some signs leading up to that. He says that white people will come upon the nation,
Which happened.
and they will force you onto small plots of land.
Which happened. Not a good thing, by the way.
No, absolutely not. Trail of Tears.
The Book of Mormon also prophesies about that.
Mm-hmm.
It does, yeah.
So he says that's going to happen. Then he says there's going to be trails that stretch from one end of America to the other, and there are going to be wooden carriages that come across these, and they have the white man and they move west. At the same time as forcing you onto small plots of land. As they're doing that, these carriages will turn metal, and they will have smoke coming out the
Cars.
top. So not cars, trains.
Trains, okay.
Trains. They will move trains. And then these carriages will take off the ground and begin to fly.
Planes.
So he's talking about airplanes. So all of these things happened directly before World War One.
So
Then he
that was all one
says
shaking?
That was all the stuff that led up to
This
the
is like
first
a
great
century.
shaking.
Oh my
So
gosh!
he's-
I thought
so-
that I was counting
so
one,
he's
talking
two.
about World War One?
So he's
Is he talking about World
so
War One?
He divides. This
You haven't
is
heard
how-
this either?
So this
No.
is how we. This is how he divides it up. So this is how he divides it
I
up.
put my Crocs into sports mode to listen to this.
He gives the sign, and then he says the great shaking, and then he gives more signs leading up to the next shaking, and then he gives more signs leading up to.
So
the
is that
third
what he's
shaking.
talking about? Is he talking about the World Wars?
So he's talking about the things that lead up to them.
Yes.
So
So the Great Shaking is
the
war?
The first great shaking is the Great War. Then,
Oh my gosh.
Then for the second great
There's
shaking,
only like 20 years in between the World Wars. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
30 years.
30.
Is it 20, 30,
19,
6, 7?
1913 and 1917, right? Or is it 18?
Depends on who you count. I only count when America joined the war. But anyways.
I like that. That's a good
And then
mentality.
World War II was, I think it was 1937 for Germany and England, just all of England starting.
And then we joined
we
41.
joined in 41.
Oh, that's right.
41 because Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Stupid
Pearl
heads.
Harbor happened December 7th, 1941. We joined the war the next day.
Yeah.
And
Those
then-
dummies
and then
got
it
us in the
ended
war.
1945. But I'm right on that,
1945.
Right? 1937 was the start.
Hitler around 1939 is when Hitler invaded Poland.
Okay, so that's when we officially refer to it. Okay.
Cool.
So Hitler died May 4th, 1945. Chuck Norris was born just a few months earlier. Keep that in mind.
Wait. Like,
Chuck Norris was born March 10th, 1945. Hitler is dead a few months later. Coincidence? I think not.
Chuck Norris entering the world knocks Hitler off his
how
feet.
geezed up is Chuck Norris, bro?
He's old. He's pretty
That
old.
dude's 85.
He's in his 80s. Yeah. He's older than Trump, and Trump's getting old. But anyways, so the Masiwa gives them more prophecies leading up to the second great shaking.
Tell us the prophecies.
So he says there will be black strips that go across the continent, and there will be little bugs that drive up and down them. Roadways, highways, with
like
cars.
black strips.
And he's given all this kind of just more industrialization of America. And then he says there will be a people in the East who rise up, who will be bent on basically world domination, who will be led by a sign. And he drew this sign on a rock for them, and they still have the rock. He drew a swastika.
No, but
Whoa.
hold on.
Okay.
So these tablets that us white dudes can't go see has a swastika on it?
No, it's a separate rock that he drew on.
Where is the rock?
They in Hopi land with the tablets. They keep it probably in a vault now, but
They need to make a Wikipedia page so we can see the pictures.
no, right? I don't know if they allow pictures taken. I'm not completely sure. You'd have to ask Lance Richardson, but he's dead. So,
Why was that funny?
I don't know. Anyways, so they believe the second great shaking was World War II.
That is, when I realized you were talking about the world wars, I was mind blown because that means the third great shaking that's unavoidable is World War III.
The first two were inevitable. The third one is avoidable if we can convince.
Did I say unavoidable?
Yes.
Okay, I meant is avoidable.
So Jesus said first two for sure. Third one is unavoidable. I always had the
third one's optional.
Is avoidable.
Third is extra credit.
But I had always had the idea that right before the World War breaks out, right when we all got our nukes aimed at each other's foreheads, that's when Jesus is going to come. But if he's saying it is avoidable, it's up to you guys, and that means we're hosed.
That means it could happen.
I'm going to talk about that.
It could happen.
I'm going to talk about this.
But I'm 100% convinced that we're going to have a World War. There's no way that our people on the earth are going to not have a World War III.
Okay, I'm going to talk about this. Okay, so it's not going to be.
Stealing his thunder.
It's not going to be completely nuclear.
Give me some popcorn.
It's not going to be completely nuclear. So the way the Masiwas said that they would end the war was the white man from Turtle Island, which Turtle Island just references in broad everywhere where the white man lives, but specifically New York.
Is this where they get the term Turtle
This
Island?
is where, yes.
Because they refer to America as Turtle Island.
Yes.
I didn't know that's from this.
Yes.
So that's the term they use to say like our land is stolen from the natives. Mm-hmm. They'll say indigenous, So the Native Americans, the Indian people were, here we took their land. So if you ever hear someone talk about Turtle Island, they're typically referring to the injustice of us taking the land from them.
Okay, so that reference that we use today is connected to all of this that you're telling about right now.
So
that's so cool.
Okay, so Turtle Island will drop what they call basically a nuke.
Yeah.
A giant gourd is what the Masiwa called it.
That's interesting.
It's
kind of
drop
They're finna drop a pumpkin out of the sky.
Think more squash, but said that they will drop a gourd on the nation that attacked them in the beginning. We dropping nukes on Japan.
So that was Big Boy and Little Boy.
Fat Boy
and Little Boy in World War II. Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Dropped from the Enola Gay, which flew out of Wendover, which is like half an hour from my house. I've seen it.
What's half an hour from your house?
Cool. Where the nuke took off from.
How did they take off from? Was it California?
No, Nevada. Really? Wendover. That's where Enola Gay took off.
Okay, so that plane was revolutionary, by the way. So before that, the B-17, the Flying Fortress. It was world renowned. It was so good. The people that designed it, they're like, this plane doesn't need fighter escorts.
Fighters, yeah.
And they put it into air, and they're like, it needs fighter escorts. But it's still a really powerful plane. That's why they call it the Flying Fortress. The successor to that plane is the B-29 Super Fortress. Mm-hmm. They called it that for a reason. The thing is insane. Look up some photos of it. The B-29 is amazing. It was the first plane that could make that trip. Mm-hmm. Did they land in Hawaii?
They probably landed in Hawaii.
Because that was my understanding.
Or Midway. They might have done Midway. Okay. I'm not sure about the flight of Enola Gay. All I know is I saw the plane. I touched it. I wasn't supposed to. It's in the Smithsonian now.
You touched the plane that dropped the nuclear bomb?
I touched
the plane.
I touched the plane. I got in big trouble with security in the Smithsonian.
That is the coolest thing ever, bro.
I also tried touching the
blended
F-117 Nighthawk. That's in there because that's my favorite plane.
Is that the one with jagged edges?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one that it bounces radar signals, and it literally shouldn't be able to fly, but it does. It looks like a giant cheese that someone took wedges out of. It's crazy.
Yeah. This is my favorite plane. I love it.
So
I love it.
Anyways, that B-29 though, it was the first plane that could make that trek all the way to Japan. The B-17 couldn't do that. They always had to go out halfway, do their bombing runs or do whatever.
That's why the island of Midway is called Midway.
Important. Right. So they would have.
I've seen that movie too.
And they'd have to come back. But with the B-29, they had the distance, and that bomb was heavy.
The nuclear bomb?
Yes, that bomb was so heavy, and so, but basically, that was some of the context surrounding that. Anyway, I'm geeking out here.
Yes. So, anyways,
me too.
War ends when we drop the bomb. I've also been to the place in Pearl Harbor. They have the USS Missouri there. Yeah. Pearl Harbor is my favorite place I've ever been. The USS Missouri is where Japanese Prime Minister meets General MacArthur.
General what?
MacArthur.
That's his last name.
Douglas MacArthur, and they officially surrendered. That's where World War II ended, was on the deck of the USS Missouri, and I have stood on the place where it ended. They have a circle. It's all fenced off. I don't like fences, unless Trump builds it.
I was going to say, bro. What?
So they have a place where General MacArthur's desk was, where the paperwork was signed, where Japan formally surrendered. It's super cool. Anyways, World War II ends. Then the Masiwa starts giving more prophecies of what will happen.
I forgot we were
if
talking
don't
about the
turn back.
Masalusa thing. I totally forgot.
Masalusa, what the crap. That's wild. Anyways, so he starts giving more prophecies. He says there will be a web that will cover the entire world, and you can speak into one end of it, and somebody on the other end could hear you. Interweb or phone lines.
Cans and strings,
stuff
baby.
like that. Yep. So he says that. He says more of these metal carriages are going to be flying, but they're going to start falling out of the air. What was happening at the beginning of this year? How many frickin' planes have fallen out of the sky this year?
Really?
Well, it was less than typical, but we got more news coverage about them.
So like, anyways, he's giving the planes are going to start falling out of the sky. He's saying all sorts of crazy stuff. He says at some point, men and women will say, I know more. Like women will say, I know more than the great creator. I'm going to become a man. And men will say, I know more than the great creator. I'm going to become a woman.
This was revealed in the 40s?
This was revealed back when the Masiwa came to visit them.
No, I know, but you're saying
2,000 years ago.
they came out
about this in the 40s.
40s?
Because they said after they were given a sign that said when a house of glass rises up in Turtle Island, you're to go and give them these prophecies. So they sent a representative to go tell the UN about this, and they rejected him. They told him no. There was a guy who they still hate to this day. He's been long dead, but the Hopis still hate him to this day because he was the guy who told them no.
Who was he?
I don't remember his name. I'd have to look it up.
He said no to what?
To letting them tell their prophecies to the world.
He's like, you crazy people. You're not going to tell me about your God and your prophecies. We're having meetings in here. We're talking about conflicts.
A few years later, they are allowed to go, and nobody takes them seriously.
Of course not.
But
especially if you hear what you just said about people deciding that they can be whatever they want to be.
Yeah,
10 years ago,
they
people would have
laughed
thought
at that.
you were crazy.
They laughed at that, and then they see Dylan Mulvaney, and they're like, "Oh, okay."
But no one's alive anymore that remembered when that was first told. That's the problem. So that we have a new culture, a new generation that hasn't heard these stories, that hasn't heard that this has been known.
Yes.
I never knew any of this. This is crazy.
It's wild.
Are you done telling your stories?
No.
Yes. Okay, keep going.
No. So another big thing that the Masiwa emphasized is there will be a black people that come upon the land. So he's talking about the slaves. And he says there will be 2 uprisings by these people. One for liberty and rights and acknowledgement.
Which did happen. Civil rights.
In the
1960s.
And then he said then there will be a second uprising, which will be for glory and power and basically just trashing on the white guys.
George Floyd what?
Well, yeah,
BLM.
is that like Black
BLM.
Lives Matter and stuff like
That's
that?
what they
or maybe
believe
not
it to
yet
be,
to happen yet?
Yeah. So obviously we're seeing this with BLM and DEI and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Why can't we ever stop the pendulum right in the middle? On equality and just fairness.
Satan. Screw that guy. Anyways, so the Masiwa is given all of these prophecies, and he says, okay, now this, and that's where they're like, okay, we got to prevent the third great shaking. That's where the Hopi prophecies end, and this is where Nostradamus, Ursula, and the dream of George Washington come in. So
We're still going?
We're still going, baby.
Let's cut out the first half, man.
So Nostradamus, Ursula, I'm going to focus more on them. And I think the Cherokee have a few things about this as well. The Cherokee have a legend about who I think is John the Beloved, which is pretty cool. But I won't get into that because then we'll be here for ages. So
make a part 2.
Yeah, we can go into that. So basically what's going to happen for the third great shaking, and this lines up with all sorts of crazy stuff. America, who will be the most powerful nation at the time, for a reason.
General MacArthur,
Defense
baby.
budget. So we will eventually be attacked on 3 sides. From the south, from the Gulf of Mexico, and then from our coasts. The
Not Canada?
nations that attack us will be led by the yellow people and the bear with whom they have slept. That's a quote from Nostradamus.
So
or
China
Ursula.
and Russia.
China and Russia.
Russia.
That's not racist,
China.
but I guess.
China-
It's a quote. I'm
It's a
quoting
quote.
something.
Quote. Okay.
So, like, if I say the N-word in a quote,
It's like when your English teacher is reading, what's that one book? Hold Yeller?
To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird. It's like
Yeah.
never good. But,
But so that's
context.
what the bear is. The
The bear represents the Soviets, the
Yeah.
Russians. So they are going to pretty much stir up the entire world against us, is what's
Are we
saying.
not seeing that right now?
So we get attacked by 3 sides, and then this is where we throw a little Joseph Smith in there. Okay, so Joseph Smith, you heard of the white horse prophecy? Joseph Smith's white horse
I've heard of
prophecy?
it. I don't know much
It's the
about
Oh, wait,
Constitution hanging by a thread.
Yeah, I have heard that.
And then the elders of the church will come down from the mountains and save the Constitution, save the nation. So this is where this comes in. We're attacked on all 3 sides. And then this is where I'll get into George Washington's vision right here. So, I'll go Nostradamus and there. So Nostradamus tells a tale. No, Ursula, she tells a tale of 2 dragons that will be fighting. There will be a white dragon, a black dragon, and a red dragon.
That's 3.
Those are 3.
Yes. So
You said 2.
Continue.
Sorry.
We're giving you a hard time. It's okay.
as I
Continue.
was. The white dragon represents the United States, and they will be engaged in mortal combat with this red dragon. And it'll seem like the red dragon's winning really, really good, and then the white dragon will come and kill it. And then the black dragon will come and kill the white dragon.
What the
And
heck?
as the black dragon is roaring in triumph, a pillar of light from heaven will come down and bring the white dragon back to life, and it will defeat the black dragon. So that's very similar to Joseph Smith's white horse
wild.
prophecy. So as a result of that, Nostradamus has stuff that his quatrains align with that pretty well. So now we get to the vision of George Washington. This happened in Valley Forge. So the record of George Washington's vision must be taken with some scrutiny because it is not a first-hand account from George.
It's good to know.
It is a report from one of his lieutenants from Valley Forge when he's like 90. So when this guy is like 90,
When
he's
the
recounting
lieutenant is
this.
90,
Yes,
yeah.
when he's reporting this to a reporter who
kinda
wants to
distant,
hear about
but
this.
still.
So he says, Lance Richardson went to the Library of Congress and asked them, he's like, is this like a legitimate document? Like, is this a good document? Library of Congress comes back and says, we can't say for sure that it's legitimate, but we can tell you that it's been published at least twice.
So it exists. It's just
It
we don't
exists.
know if it's
We don't know if
accurate.
it's authentic or not.
Yeah.
So, published at least twice. So take this with scrutiny. But the reason why I personally believe it is because it aligns with all of these other prophecies and stuff. So George is sitting in. He's the guy, the lieutenant. I can't remember his name for the life of me. I think it was like Samuel something, and I think his last name started with an H. Correct me if I'm wrong. So George is sitting in Valley Forge alone, and there's tons of stories of George going off into the thicket to pray, particularly at Valley Forge. The famous picture of George praying next to his horse is supposedly taken from Valley Forge. Not taken, painted from Valley Forge. So he's sitting in his quarters alone, just kind of like stressing over this map, when suddenly he looks up and there's this angelic figure above him, and George is completely paralyzed. He can't speak. He's just frozen in fear of this majestic being. And the being doesn't talk, but he hears a voice in his mind, and it says, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." And then mist clouds Washington's vision. He is then, when the mist clears, it's just like tumbling and tossing, kind of like a dark cumulonimbus cloud. And then when it clears, Washington is viewing the continental United States from the sky, in essence. He can see the entire landscape of America laid out before him. And he hears the voice, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." And he sees a dark, shadowy figure dip its hand into the ocean and sprinkle water across the eastern coast. And it says, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." Again, it says that a lot. And he sees scenes, kind of like, the Book of Mormon videos where Nephi is seeing different scenes. That's kind of how it's described. He sees different scenes of the American Revolution, and he sees their eventual victory. And then he says, "Son of the Republic, look and learn," sees the figure dip his hand in the ocean, and beforehand, I forgot this, he sprinkles it over Europe and the United States.
So Europe first, and then the East Coast.
Europe first, and then the East Coast. Revolutionary War. Those are the two nations.
So the conflict.
Yes. So then he sees "Son of the Republic, look and learn" again. He says, "This is the second conflict that you are going to see, dipped in the ocean, sprinkled on the south."
So Civil War.
Civil War. He says he's shown. The voice says, "You will be shown 3 great conflicts that will plague your nation." And then after the Civil War, he sees Reconstruction. Thank you, President Grant, even though it didn't really go very well because we got Jim Crow afterwards. And then he sees the expansion of the United States, and he says it's filled with beautiful people. He says it's filled with the most beautiful people you could ever think of.
Probably partly referencing like living righteously, godly people.
Godly people and just hot people.
Oh.
That
does tend to go
that's kind of how it's
hand in
described.
hand.
So, yes, very much so. And then he's shown the last conflict, which is what correlates with Nostradamus and Ursula, where the shadowy figure dips both hands into the ocean and sprinkles it on. And I forgot to mention this with the Hopis when they're describing their great shakings. The first 2 will be the earth will be shook with one hand, and the third one, the extra credit one, will be shaken with both hands.
So a double suffering or double turmoil.
Mm-hmm. So the shadowy figure dipping with one hand and sprinkling it. Now it's 2 hands, and he's sprinkling it over Europe, over Africa, Russia, and China, and just everywhere. Pretty much everywhere.
Again, we're seeing that right now with Russia making alliances with Islamic countries and with, did I say Russia already? Russia, yes. China, Islamic countries. Like that is the alliance that has been.
BRICS as well, yeah. So the usual suspects besides Germany.
And these things were not created in the last 5-10 years. Like that's the thing that we need to remember with this stuff is, I mean, this account you talk about, while we don't know if it's valid.
It's been around since like 18 something.
Right. This is surprising that it dates that far back.
Yes. This, man, I'm trying to remember when it was published. I think it was just after the Civil War when this was
wild.
Published. So Washington's lieutenant lived a really long time. But anyways, so he describes America being attacked from Gulf of Mexico, East Coast, West Coast. And basically just terror, just complete and utter terror, just coming in until it reaches the Rocky Mountains.
What the heck?
So that's where I live.
The Rocky Mountains is a very, it's
protected,
nearly impenetrable
because of
the
elevation.
Appalachians are dwarfed in comparison to the Rockies, and like California and all that kind of stuff. Like California and Nevada, the Great Basin is so easy to get across if you're a modern military. So the second you get to, I live right on the edge of the Great Basin. This is great. So it gets to the Rockies, and that's where the forces kind of start like really clashing, kind of a thing. So America's been almost completely conquered except for the Rockies. And a pillar of light comes down in the Rockies, and basically Christ, who Washington called Providence, comes down with a sword in one hand and a staff in the other, and he says, "Stop and remember ye our brethren." And then everybody kneels down and says, "Amen." Which is the second coming of Christ. Think White Horse Prophecy from Joseph Smith with that, as well as this dream. It's just all correlating super, super well.
All separate sources, not influencing each other. These are not. Oh my goodness.
The Hopis never met Nostradamus. They never met frickin' Dalai Lamas who also prophesied something similar to this. Christ did also, according to
Dalai Lama is Hindu leaders, right?
Tibetan something.
Okay.
I don't know. They're based in Tibet. I
Okay.
don't know what religion the Dalai Lama is, but he's a cool monk, I guess. But the Hopis have their story of Christ visiting them. The Dalai Lamas have their own version of a great white God-inspired person visiting them. And then in Switzerland, there's another version. So we get Christ visiting the Jews, the brown people in Tibet, the red people in the Americas, and the white people in Switzerland. So there's all sorts of crazy stories, and I bet Africa has something that's been lost to time.
Wow.
But I mean, sheep I have, which are not of this fold, then also I must bring. That
Scripture from the Book of Mormon.
includes
And from the
everybody.
Bible.
That's John 16.
Oh, that's true. I forgot.
So
Yeah.
It's also in the Book of
we
Mormon.
believe it to
But,
mean that he
yes.
visited all peoples
Yes.
on the earth after he died.
In the
John
Bible, he
16:10.
says, "I have other sheep," and then he visits America. We believe that that's the fulfillment of the Bible prophecy.
Yeah.
You follow from the Bible to the Book of Mormon, where he says it again. That's when I first learned that. I noticed that he said that he has other sheep that are not of this fold to the second flock of sheep that he was talking about from the Bible. I'm thinking,
There's
holy
more.
cuss, he visited other people. There are
There's
12
more.
tribes after all.
Well, and I'm going to drop a truth bomb here. One of the verses in the Book of Mormon, it talks about how in the last days, all this scripture that I have given, he says, I think it's in First Nephi 29 when he's talking. He's like kind of scolding people that
Maybe.
don't believe in the Book of Mormon because,
Second Nephi 29, yeah.
was it Second Nephi 29? He's scolding the people that don't believe in the Book of Mormon because he's like, how dare you say that I can't continue my word?
Yep.
Like how are you as man to
Know ye
limit
not
me?
that there are more nations than one?
Right. And he says, so he talks about how there's a testament in all lands, all nations, that he exists, that he lives, which is just, I don't know, just honest, in my soul, that resonates with me.
Yes.
It just makes so much sense that he testified to all people of his existence. And there's all these myths, and I've heard some of them. I did not know even half of these. This is crazy.
I didn't
But-
know any of these previous to my mission.
Wow.
It's a lot.
But it says in the Book of Mormon that the scripture that has been buried will be revealed. I mean, Dead Sea Scrolls, and
Yep.
then it talks about stuff in Russia, in Eastern Europe.
There have
like-
been metal tablets discovered in Veracruz, Mexico, that echo the
Really?
design of the golden plates. Yes,
There's
that's
gonna be
where
a lot of
most
this.
that's where most Book of Mormon scholars believe Book of Mormon times took place.
In Mexico?
Not necessarily Mexico, but I don't subscribe to either the Heartland theory or the Mesoamerican theory. I am much more of a limited space. Like the Book of Mormon had to happen on a peninsula. That's a whole other subject. Book of Mormon
We'll skip that
geography.
for now.
Part 3.
But it's, oh my gosh, it's incredible. Basically afterwards the millennium's ushered in, and then we get Revelation stuffing in. Oh, also there's going to be a nuke dropped on Turtle Island. So
A nuke, like an actual nuke.
yeah, a gourd
is-
is going to be dropped on.
I'm down with
Turtle
that.
Island.
Low-key. Well, I'm actually not. When it comes to violence and stuff, obviously not. But
Yeah, so
It's
if
just-
it brings
I
us
think
closer, to,
the Masiwa said there were like 3 gourds that would be dropped, and I'm
Cool.
thinking take out L.A., New York, and probably
DC.
sadly D.C.
DC would have to be one of the targets.
Yes.
I've always we have an uncle that moved to DC, and that's been my constant concern. Is if I ever move to a big city, it's going to be more likely to be targeted. But
Yeah.
I mean, nukes they affect all the surrounding area. It's not like if you're just out. Anyway, we could be affected too by
Yeah.
one going off in Boise.
Yes.
So
Yes, absolutely. But but it ends with Christ's coming and the ushering in of the millennium and stuff like that. So, and Revelation, I love looking at Revelation, and particularly Elder McConkey's interpretation of Revelation and connecting it with everything. It's just so cool.
So is this
The Institute Manual is a great guide to show how previous prophets and apostles have interpreted Revelation and stuff like that. So
Okay.
interesting.
the thing I'm wondering is, was that part of the avoidable third shaking? So
What's-
if we don't avoid the third great shaking, the third world war, or maybe it doesn't even become a world war if we get decimated, then if we don't avoid that, we're going to see at least 3 nuclear devices detonated on our soil and an invasion from west, east, and south.
Gulf of America.
And by the way, that doesn't mean Mexico. If you don't know what's going on right now, China is occupying a lot of the land south of our border, working alongside Venezuela. Has Venezuela been on the news recently?
Nope.
It has been.
Well, recently, yes.
What-
But I
do
haven't
you
seen
remember-
anything about Venezuela since Trump sent Marines.
But do you remember that they blew up the drug
Yes.
boat?
I've been seeing that.
Glenn Beck thinks the reason that's happening is because he's trying to deter China, because China is rooting themselves in Venezuela.
Oh, great.
And it's not just Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela is closer to us than you guys think. It's the northern part of South America. It's not that much ocean between us and Florida, between them and Florida. And so that's what he's trying to stop. And that's part of the reason why he's involved in the Panama Canal as well. It's part of the reason he was talking about rich minerals coming from Greenland. We need the rare earth minerals because we're in a war right now with China. If you don't realize we're in a war, we are in a not just a trade war, but we're in a cyber and cold war.
We just made a huge rare earth minerals deal with Australia.
That's great.
Which is awesome. Like Trump had the Prime Minister of Australia over, and they made a great rare earth minerals deal. Trump made that rare earth mineral deal with Ukraine to try to get Russia to back off. Obviously, that didn't work, but to try to put Americans on the ground working.
It's critical to our security. Like, people do not realize how close we are to the edge.
Yeah.
Like, even before you told me all this stuff about these prophecies, I've felt great concern for the stability of our country. We are not doing well.
Yes.
Especially, so the big thing that hit recently was in China, they have dark factories. Have you heard about these?
Dark factories, no.
Yes.
There aren't any people in these factories. Remember, China has a population implosion problem. I think India has already surpassed them in population. China used to be the most populous nation on the planet. They are not able to keep up with population. We're struggling as well. That is one of the first signs of a downfall of a nation, by the way.
When they get overpopulated?
No, they're underpopulated.
They're underpopulated.
When they're not producing anymore. Yes.
Implosion.
And so what they're doing is they are maddening their hunt for AI. All these dark factories, there's no people working in them. It's robots. Everything. Literally, Ford went to China and looked at these dark factories. They have to turn lights on so you can actually see stuff. Or maybe they just go in with night vision goggles. There's no lights because they don't need them. There's no people working in them. And basically what he said was, the president of Ford said, I walk in, and at first you start seeing, it's in one building, and the start of the assembly line, you start seeing the beginnings of a car being made. By the time you walk, and I think he said it was 800 feet. You walk 800 feet, and the car, fully finished, rolls off the assembly line. He said, I forget the exact quote. You guys would have to look it up. But the president of Ford said Ford will cease to exist if we cannot do what they are doing now.
That's wild.
If we cannot keep up with their rate of production, we will be outnumbered and outcompeted. Ford will cease to exist. This happened like a month ago or less. And I don't feel like it got the coverage that it deserved.
What's that got to do with underpopulation?
The reason we won the World War II was because we produced so much compared to the Germans. We beat them in a manufacturing race. We are now entering an age where China might do that very thing.
Beat us in a manufacturing race.
If they can manufacture weapons of mass destruction, vehicles, armament, weapons, and not even have a single person doing it, they don't even need an army. They'll build an army, a robotic one, missile guided system,
Yeah, I chose the wrong time to join the army.
It's sad. This is the state of affairs of our current world, and how warfare is executed, and it's not looking good for us because they're building coal plants. I think they were saying they open a new coal plant every week. They're opening up another coal plant. They're building them really fast, first off, but they're building basically store stepping them. So they're just They started construction on this one, then this one, this one, this one. They're building nuclear plants constantly as well. They're going to output us in. They're going to output us in electrical production, and we need electricity in order to even do any of this to keep up with them.
So, everything that's been said today, all of your history, Carson, with I can't even pronounce the names, all of that awesome stuff, all of this that you're telling me, I've 100% of this stuff that I did not know before. How can people find out about this? Like, let's start with you, Carson. What are your sources? Not that I don't believe you, because I do. No. That sounds so sick.
Lance Richardson is my main source.
Just Google Lance Richardson?
You can Google Lance Richardson, They Saw Our Day. I'm basically regurgitating everything that he's said.
Regurgitating, word of the day.
Yes. But there's some other stuff. Like, we don't say this to scare anybody. This is very terrifying. It can be terrifying.
You will be less terrified knowing that this is a possibility, and then if it happens, compared to if you're just shopping one day and you didn't know this was a possibility, and the thief of the night, takes you.
Yes.
So Lance Richardson, They Saw Our Day.
Now, what we haven't discussed is what to do about it. And I will be super quick with this. Arm yourselves. Learn survival skills and stuff like that. Be dangerous in the nature. Turn yourself into a weapon. But the main thing on a spiritual side is we got to go back to the core principles of American virtue. Have you heard of the American Covenant before? Anybody?
Maybe.
American Covenant? Let's turn to the Book of Mormon.
I'm down. I read the Book of Mormon.
By the way, our production team helped us out, and they pulled up the scripture I was talking about earlier in 2 Nephi 29. For behold, I shall speak unto the Jews, and they shall write it, the Bible. And I shall also speak unto the Nephites, the people in the Americas, and they shall write it, and that's the Book of Mormon. And I shall also speak unto the other tribes of the house of Israel, which I have led away, and they shall write it. So there's other prophecies, which is exactly what we talked about this whole time. And I shall also speak unto all nations of the earth, and they shall write it. And it shall come to pass that the Jews shall have the words of the Nephites, so the Bible and the Book of Mormon combined, and the Nephites shall have the words of the Jews, and the Nephites and the Jews shall have the words of the lost tribes of Israel, and the lost tribes of Israel shall have the words of the Nephites and the Jews. So basically everyone's going to hear all of the different scripture. It's going to all intermingle, and it's going to be one word, because
it's all going to make sense.
It's all going to click. Yep, it's all going to be congruent. It's all going to agree.
All right. Now I'm going to blow your minds with the American. So
now you're going to blow our minds?
No, it's just, this is how we fix our country and how we can best avoid that third great shaking. So this is Ether 2, verses 8 through 12, and I'll only read a few snippets from it. Basically, it's God talking to the brother of Jared, and he's like, okay, this is the covenant that you got to do if I'm going to lead you to the promised land. And promised land, take it generally, take it as the Americas in general, because we're not sure where the Jaredites or the Nephites landed. Yeah. So we just don't really know. We know where they took off from, but we don't know where they landed. So he says, and now this is verse 9, and now we can behold the decrees of God concerning this land, take this land broadly, that it is a land of promise, and whatsoever nation shall possess it shall serve God, or they shall be swept off when the fullness of his wrath shall come upon them. And the fullness of his wrath cometh upon them when they are ripened in iniquity. For behold, this is a land which is choice above all other lands. Wherefore he that doth possess it shall serve God, or shall be swept off, for it is the everlasting decree of God. So basically, serve God, or you're going to get swept off. And that's the basis for the American Covenant. I would wager to say the American Covenant has snuck its way into probably the most important things that we should be reviewing in American literature. What does the title of liberty say? What does Moroni say in the title of liberty?
In honor of our liberty, our family, our God, and our religion.
Alma 46:12. So, which
in memory of our God and our religion and freedom and our peace, our wives and our children.
Yes.
Okay.
Word for word.
Word for word. Think Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
indivisible,
Liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Yes. So my hypothesis, this is going to be a great thesis statement. My hypothesis is the title of liberty is the Nephites' Pledge of Allegiance and their American flag, because he had it Captain Moroni had it hoisted up in every city, pretty much, across wherever the Nephites were in power. The American Covenant, however, I believe, is explicitly in the Star-Spangled Banner. Any of you know the third verse off the top of your head?
I don't. I sang it recently.
Okay.
It was
okay.
So
I would
so,
be
so,
one,
so.
and I don't know it. I'm gonna
think
memorize that.
think of the American Covenant that I just read,
In the
and
Book
let's
of Mormon.
go to
Yeah.
hymn
340, baby.
340. And this is the third verse. Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes in the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. So he's saying, Francis Scott Key there is saying, hey, we need to praise God because he's the reason why we're here today.
He is our victory.
Mm-hmm. Then conquer we must when our cause it is just. So being righteous conquerors there, American Covenant. And this be our motto, and God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. I believe that's the American Covenant there, where God inspired Francis Scott Key to write those words. I believe that that's why the Star-Spangled Banner is our national anthem and not America the Beautiful, is because, yeah, sure, our country's pretty, but that third verse, also, there are 4 verses of the Star-Spangled Banner, in case you didn't know. The actual third verse is trashing on the British. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
People are like, oh, it's about slavery. And I'm like, no, it's about trashing on the British. Know your stuff. So that was a bit gay. but
Which is fine.
Which is fine. I'm homosexual.
As I do this. Hey, that's chill. You know what?
I firmly
And that's why they're in a
believe.
band.
Yes.
We're in a band.
wild.
I'm not gonna make
But
fun of
that's why I firmly believe that the Star-Spangled Banner is our national anthem, because Francis Scott Key was inspired by God to write those words to try to help us remember why we are here and how we can keep progressing as a country. Because think the Industrial Revolution in America happened shortly after the church was was brought back, when the church was restored. And so I really fervently believe that a God-fearing nation will prevail over all others, and this is the greatest country that has ever existed in the history of the world, and that we need to remember that what got us here was Judeo-Christian values, Western civilization based out of Jerusalem, Athens, and Rome, and that we need to go back to those values, and we need to vehemently, peacefully oppose all ideologies that will destroy that.
Amen.
That's a great place to end.
That is. I do think, for me mostly, you're saying Google Lance Richardson.
Lance
Lance
Richardson.
Richardson.
I'll Google it for you, and I'll send you the link.
They saw our day. I want to post this in the links that we post on social media too, so that people can find for themselves. And then you were talking.
He also gives a fun story about his own personal life. He had an out-of-body experience.
Wow,
interesting.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, send me a link. And then you were talking about. I've seen the video of them blowing up that ship. There's things like some drug cartel, whatever. But all this that you're talking about, Asia and the factories of darkness and all this. How do you find that out? Where are you getting that from?
I listen to Glenn Beck every day.
Glenn Beck, he's talking about it? Okay.
Well, this was an extremely long episode, but this was very worth it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed being here.
Thank you for joining us, Carson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any other words.
This is mine. Dude, this is splendid, bro. I need popcorn next time. I'm going to bring snacks.
Take these words home.
And
pray about it. Find out for yourself. Do some research. We're not trying to tell you to believe anything we have to say here. We're asking you to ask. Ask the question. Find the truth. Pray. That'll be everything for tonight, guys. Take care.